Lives, resources, and deception, rather than honor and reputation, are the elements of the concept that Sun Tzu emphasized in breaking a frontier with strategy. The ancient general and philosopher is responsible for writing The Art of War, a treatise on military strategy and philosophy that has dramatically influenced people around the world for centuries. Written by General Sun Tzu, the 13-chapter guide, The Art of War, has revolutionized the definition of strategy. Before Sun Tzu, it was accepted that one's honor was crucial in the midst of battle. Sun Tzu defines war not as a competition for being seen with honor, but a liability that produces death, resource loss, and loss of stability. Sun Tzu shows how the driving force of an army must be military victory for a country, not the acquisition of reputation points for a general. Sun Tzu's chapters discuss leadership, the capability to evaluate, adaptability, preparations, and deception. His writing promotes a successful outcome for a nation in battle. Even before The Art of War was completed, Sun Tzu utilizes its concepts in the ancient Chinese Wuchu Wars. The year is 500 BCE. Desperate to protect his kingdom, King Heulu of Wu calls upon almighty strategist, philosopher, and military general Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu assures King Heulu that he can prepare the smaller Wu army to overcome the Chu, despite the Chu's overwhelming size. Wary of Sun Tzu's credibility, Heulu mockingly challenges him. Heulu says, "If you claim to be able to turn anyone into a hardened, reliable soldier, then why don't you turn these palace women, these spoiled, lazy concubines, into a strong fighting force?" Sun Tzu accepts this challenge and immediately gets to work with his makeshift platoon. He first selects the two most senior of the concubines to lead the others and instill discipline within the group. His next orders are for the women to assemble a uniform line with weapons at the ready at the sound of drums, but the women merely start to giggle at their signal. Afraid his instructions were unclear, Sun Tzu repeats them, but the result remains the same. As Sun Tzu says, if words of command are not clear and distinct, if orders are not thoroughly understood, then the general is to blame. But if orders are clear and the soldiers nevertheless disobey, then it is the fault of their officers. Sun Tzu knows that he is not being taken seriously, and to fix this he executes the two leading concubines in front of their platoon. Sun Tzu needs his subordinates to understand that war is a matter of life and death in order to obtain their full motivation. At the next sound of the drums, the women follow orders without hesitation. Sun Tzu manages to successfully assemble a fully functional squadron from soft, unconditioned concubines, therefore proving his point to King Heulu and gaining control over the Wu military. He then assembled and trained a Wu military force wielding 33,000 men. Being outnumbered almost 10 to 1 by Nanghua's Chu offense, Sun Tzu is expected to stake out and wait for the coming onslaught of Chu destruction. Being Sun Tzu, he chooses to do the unexpected and invade Chu. Instead of charging head-on into the bulk of a 300,000 person army, Sun Tzu targets weak outposts where the Chu army is spread thin. Here, Sun Tzu's fast and efficient attacks make it impossible for Nanghua to order any counterattacks. Sun Tzu's forces are always on the move. He had to evaluate that his power was uncomparable to that of the enemies in the circumstance of waiting for the coming onslaught. His evaluations brought an outcome that was great for the Wu. Near the end of the war, Sun Tzu finds himself in a predicament. Nanghua's massive army has pinned the Wu fighting force in a situation where it is hard to flee. To counter this, Sun Tzu splits his army and leads half of it to make a move on the exposed Chu capital, Ying. Nanghua could leave the Ying city to fend for themselves, but he fears this would discredit him for the defeat of Sun Tzu. Consequently, he follows Sun Tzu's group instead of finishing the soldiers he had pinned. This type of rash decision is exactly what Sun Tzu preaches against. This elongates war, which puts victory at risk. The abandoned Wu soldiers trail the Chu army and close in on them. All the while, Sun Tzu initiates a surprise attack on Nanghua before he reaches Ying. Nanghua's soldiers are circled in and destroyed by Sun Tzu, therefore winning the war for the Wu. Skipping forward about 2,500 years brings us to World War II of the 1940s. The Allied forces France, Great Britain, USSR, and the United States are poised against the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. The experience of war has changed drastically due to advancements in weaponry over this time, but despite this, Sun Tzu's art of war is still very much applicable. The Allied forces' only chance of success was through European invasion, but this was no simple task. The most logical point of attack was the coast of France, but the Germans were aware of this and had all possible landing spots locked down. Sun Tzu once said, "All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make them think we are near." This is exactly what the Allies must do. They must deceive the enemies into thinking they are in one place, when in reality, they are in another. In our interview with Major McClary, a former Special Forces soldier and a professor on Sun Tzu at West Point Academy, he explained, "You need to start with a well-defined strategic objective before you even start to come up with your strategy or your approach." The Allied forces realized that the most logical point of attack was the coast of France, so they made that their main objective and began to think of possible strategies they could use. Supreme Commander of the Allied forces, Dwight D. Eisenhower, knows that attacking the Nazi army at their strongest will be futile, so he decides to take a page right out of Sun Tzu's book and deceives the Germans. Through the use of double agents, misinformation via radio, and fake inflatable army platoons, the Allies managed to convince the Nazis that they will attack at Pas-de-Calais when their true target is the beaches of Normandy. On the day of the invasion, the Allies have successfully manipulated the Germans into moving the bulk of their military power towards the Pas-de-Calais, but in no way does this mean that landing on Normandy will be a piece of cake. The Allies are stopped at some points by a lot of troops from the opposition. However, the Allies are able to maintain motivation and secure victory because of yet another Sun Tzu lesson. When you will survive if you fight quickly, and perish if you do not, this is called dying ground, he says. With an ocean to their backs, the only possible way for the Allied soldiers to survive is to fight quickly, just as Sun Tzu says. This exemplifies evaluation, as evaluating the minds of the soldiers in the place in which they will be fighting is exactly what the Allies do. You can clearly see the benefits of this intuitive strategy created by the Allies. Transitioning from the 1940s to the present day, we can witness the relevance of the art of war in the Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine, just like the state of Wu in 500 BCE, is considerably less powerful than its opponent, but has managed to hold its own longer than most expected in the war. In early September 2022, Ukraine managed to launch a surprise attack on Kharkiv, a city in Ukraine that had been occupied by Russia. Through this attack, Ukraine managed to regain almost 2,000 square kilometers of territory. So how did they achieve such an overwhelming victory over Russia? They made use of Sun Tzu's timeless advice. Ukraine needed Russia to think they were striking somewhere they were not, similar to how the Allies deceived the Axis powers at the Battle of Normandy. Through false media and communications, Russia became convinced that they should be expecting an attack on the city of Kherson, which caused them to take support from Kharkiv, therefore weakening it against the coming attack. In our interview with Dr. Futek Chek, an expert on Sun Tzu, who has written many books about Sun Tzu's teachings, described that an important element to the art of war is survival. He says,
the key point to realize that, number one, first very important point, Sun Tzu's art of war is not really about war. It's really about survival.
Right.
The art of surviving. How do you survive?
Surviving, of course, is essential in combat, but it also expands to sports, politics, business, etc. In 2002, Brazil World Cup coach Luis Felipe Scolari claims to have slid passages from the art of war under the doors of his players. Brazil won this year. As for business, the art of war's lessons can be followed to help a company stay above its competitors. Know your enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles you will never be in peril, Sun Tzu said. If you know the strengths and weaknesses of both you and your opponents in business, then you will know how to adapt in difficult situations. In politics, similar lessons apply. To get your point across to a target audience, specifically when you're poised against someone of the opposite opinion, if you can uncover the flaws in your opponent's argument and can back up your own, victory is assured. Consistently, a pattern of success follows those who abide by Sun Tzu and his teachings, therefore solidifying these teachings as a frontier in strategy.